her questions for you guys right now, coming up only on TV Guide Live. Hey everybody, I'm Alex Albin, Managing Editor for TV Guide Live. As mentioned, I'm here with the awesome, multi-talented Richard Armitage. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for Frenchifying my name.
Oh, did I? Wait, how do you pronounce it?
No, it's Armitage.
Armitage. Ah.
But you're good. Everyone does it.
This interview is already terrible. I apologize. You guys, please send in your questions. Facebook.com/TVGuide or hashtag TVGLive on Twitter. We'll be getting to them throughout the show. You guys have already been sending them in, so we'll get to them very, very soon. But first, I want to talk about Berlin Station. I've watched the first 2 episodes. It's an incredible spy show, but I'm mostly curious, and I'm sure you're getting this a lot. You were on MI5 back in the day, one of the seminal spy shows. What brought you back to the genre?
It's a genre that I love. I love to watch it on film. I love to watch it on television, and I love to read it as well. I was a big Jean le Carré fan, and discovered Owen Stenhauer, our show creator, through literature. But it was interesting coming back to it after I think about 10 years. That was when I started on MI5 to see how it's changed, how the landscape has changed. It's far more immediate, and the technology has become kind of an unreliable place for the intelligence services. So it was much more kind of face-to-face interaction, which was really interesting.
Well, let's talk about the unreliableness a bit, because of course, as it is a spy thriller, there's a lot of backstabbing, there's a lot of trickery going on. For those who haven't watched the first 2 episodes yet, and they're available online on EPIX, so you can check them out. That's how I watch them. What's going on with your character? He gets drawn in after a time, not out in the cold, more out in the heat, right?
Well, okay, look, here's a good parallel. You know, in the news today, there was some joke article, I think it was a joke article, that Pamela Anderson has killed Julian Assange by giving him a vegan sandwich. Did you read that?
No, not yet.
So Daniel is basically Pamela Anderson, and he's going to find Thomas Shaw, and he's going to feed him a vegan sandwich. So that's the idea, is that he's somehow sent to Berlin. He identifies the source of a leak. Thomas Shaw is our Edward Snowden figure, and he identifies where these leaks are coming from that is potentially going to shatter the CIA apart. So he is sent to Berlin to find out who it is.
Yeah. As the Pamela Anderson on the show, do you get to do the slow-mo Baywatch run at
There's
all?
there's not so much, there's definitely slow motion running, or fast motion biking. I do a lot of cycling around the city.
Yeah, well, we were talking about this a little bit before the cameras went on. It was actually filmed in Berlin, and the shots are gorgeous. What was it like being, not even on set there, but actually physically in the city and shooting?
I mean, there are so many answers to that question. I wanted to live like a Berliner, so I chose to live in Kreuzberg in a very kind of traditional area. Our crew were amazing. They're all kind of local, from different parts of Germany, different parts of Berlin. So they knew that city like the back of their hand. The way that it was shot, the locations that were found were quite remarkable. It has so many different faces. It almost feels like a character in the piece, from the Weimar Republic to the 1940s, 50s, the Stasi in the 60s, and then a very futuristic landscape. So the city itself was really exciting, and every day I'd get to set and find a location that just took my breath away.
Yeah. We touched on this a little bit earlier, but given it is a spy thriller, is he actually the hero, or is there a little bit of a twist? Is he unreliable in a way?
That would kind of give it away, but what we do, I mean, I spent the entire series thinking that Daniel had been behind a desk for 10 years at Langley, and then it turns out he hasn't. He's been out in the field in Panama. So these little twists and turns where what you think you know about somebody from the file that's on them and what's said about them is not always the truth. And to me, that's one of the most politically relevant things that we have in our show, is that, you know, where is the truth, what is the truth, and who do you believe, and where do you find your truth? So, yeah.
The series, we'll move on to the fan questions in a second. You guys keep sending them in, facebook.com/TVGuide, hashtag TVGLive. But I'm curious, I'm sure you can talk a lot about this, but the show starts in media res. It starts in the middle of the action with Daniel, spoiler, but bleeding out and dying. How soon are we going to get back to that point?
Not anytime soon. Yeah, we get back to that point probably towards the final quarter of episode 10. We shot 2 endings, so I don't know if he survives. I still don't know.
Even you don't know?
Even I don't know.
Really?
So
You have a suspicion,
everyone
though,
is.
right?
I have a sort of a suspicion, but we shot 2 endings, and if the show gets picked up, we're excited, but I don't know if I'm going to be part of it. We'll see. I'll find out when I watch episode 10.
There we go. I'm excited to watch
But
it.
I deliberately said, don't tell me. I don't want to know.
Oh, there we go. All right. Well, we're all excited to find out. Let's get to some of your guys' questions because, as I mentioned, there's a ton of them coming in. Kelly on Twitter asks, due to your research and work on hashtag Berlin Station, did your viewpoint change as to how much truth should be exposed? And were you ever interested in a career in intelligence, i.e. agent, analyst, offer specialist, etc.?
Really, really good question. And yes, it's something which every single day when I'm looking at the news feed and I'm going back to my show to talk about it, it's the question that's in my head, which is the idea of equivocation. And I feel like these people have to speak to some people with one face and other people with another face. And I feel like full transparency across the board is A, unachievable and not desirable, because how do we, I mean, it's to say that we just need to snoop on our enemies and our friends is reductive. I think it's a highly forensic maze of targeting and picking up information, and so full transparency is a utopia which we'll never have.
Yeah. So you think, I mean, we're living in a world right now where WikiLeaks is dropping new stuff from Hillary Clinton's email pretty much every day. Are spies still necessary in the real world?
I think so. I mean, with regards to WikiLeaks and the information that Thomas Shaw is dropping, it's selective and you can edit it and you can take it out of context and create the truth that you wish to create, which is one of the dangers. It's one of the things that Daniel is sent in to try and control, is that, in our story, it's the Berliner Zeitung, the newspaper, that's upheld as a kind of bastion of truth. But even then, it has an agenda. Mm-hmm. There's a sort of sore wound of America spying on Germany, and Angela Merkel's phone being tapped is a theme that comes through. So there is an agenda there. I mean, it's almost impossible not to have an agenda. So Assange has an agenda, and it's a personal agenda. So can we believe what we're reading, or we're not really reading it, are we? I don't think anyone's actually reading all of the emails.
Right.
I think we're taking the edited bits from the news media.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you say that. I mean, not to get too esoteric about it, but we're all humans, right? So we're all, at the end of the day, going to have some sort of agenda about these things, right? Even Daniel.
Yeah.
There you go. Allison on Twitter asks, what did you come to admire or question about intelligence services in 2016 after working on this show?
I do admire the fact that they are regular citizens who step up to the plate to work for their country, that there is a level of patriotism which was something I was seeking in the character, that they put themselves on the line, they attempt to leave their own agenda behind, whether or not that's possible. Of course they're going to take their opinions and their views with them, but the ability not to lose oneself in the amount of the array of different characters that they have to assume when they're in the field, because it's like they have to be extraordinary actors in a life and death situation, as we will explore in Berlin Station, that we call it legend. When you take on a character, it's a legend. Mm-hmm. And the ability that they have not to disappear into that, and because sometimes they're in deep cover for a long period of time. That was something I admired.
Cool. Kim on Twitter says, I think we covered this a little bit, but was there any initial trepidation about playing another spy?
I knew that he was going to be different. I knew that his skill set was less than the one I'd previously explored, and that was deliberately so. I wanted to make him as everyman as possible. I didn't want him to be a kind of superhero, or to be a genius, or have some kind of weird levels of perception. I just wanted him to be a regular guy with a level of intelligence thrown into an extraordinary circumstance which tests him and stretches him, and he has to become, the superhero effectively. Mm-hmm. But he isn't. He doesn't have, he's a regular guy.
Yeah. Was coming off something like The Hobbit, coming off things like Hannibal that are very arch, certain aspects are exaggerated, was that another thing that drove you towards a more realistic setting? Yeah,
for sure. I mean, it was top of the agenda to find something relevant, political, contemporary, and at the same time entertaining. We're not making a documentary about the CIA. We want it to high stakes jeopardy, but I was relieved to find that I wasn't rolling over the bonnets of cars with a gun in my hand.
Yeah. How would Daniel do in Middle Earth? Well, you think?
I think he might stand out for being terribly normal and not having a beard or, a crazy wig on.
There we go. Lee on Twitter says, which of you enjoyed more, performing on stage or on screen? What are your best, worst parts of each?
I've realized over the years that whenever I'm on stage, I always crave to be on screen, and whenever I'm on screen, I crave to be on stage, so I'm never quite satisfied. Yeah, I think being on stage, you disappear for 3 hours, and it's non-stop. There's the end of the take, you don't cut and have a conversation. It's like full 3 hours where you just lose that part of your life, or gain it, however you choose to see it. So there's a certain level of control. Once the play starts, it's yours. But at the same time, on film, I love piecing together very slowly and carefully every aspect of the character, because you can just pepper it with so much detail, and that's addictive.
Is there anything different about filming in a real place like Berlin versus on a set versus on a green screen to you?
Yeah, I mean, and that was one of the big pluses of Berlin Station, is that I was in a studio setting so infrequently. Like, most of the places we shot, even the interiors, were all found locations. So many of them are dressed by our brilliant production designer. But yeah, you really don't have to imagine a great deal. It's all there for you.
Yeah. Arena on Twitter asks, what was the most memorable day on set for you? Can you talk about it? Has it broadcast yet?
think, the first thing that comes to my head when I think about that question is the night shoot where Daniel was cycling around the city on this amazing bike that they found for me, which is an electric bike, so it sort of has its own propulsion inside of it. And there's a small amount of it in episode 1, but we shot loads of stuff. We shot for nearly the entire night, cycling all over Berlin through traffic, and yeah, that was pretty memorable. Apart from it being extremely cold, it was just a great way to see Berlin through the night,
Yeah, it's a gorgeous scene. Again, we were talking about this a little bit before the cameras went on. I watched it on a laptop, but really, because of the way the show is filmed, I think you should watch it on as large of a screen as possible if you can.
Yeah, it's something that didn't occur to me until I saw it from small, because I'd been watching it on an iPad, and then I saw it on a big screen, and I realized that there was a reason why 5 feature film directors were hired, and Hagen Bogdansky, the director of photography, was hired, because the look of the show is so cinematic. And of course, it has to sit in EPIX programming, which is all movies. And last night, our premiere, we came on after Spectre, the James Bond film, and I thought, how do we stand up against that? But cinematically, it does, because of the way that he shot the piece, and I think it's beautiful in places.
Yeah. A couple more for you. Don on Twitter says, how do you mentally prepare yourself to switch on your American accent and keep from slipping back to your own?
I made a decision that when I got in the car in the morning, I would start speaking with the dialect and then not speak with the dialect when I got home at night. But actually, and I did, and I was working mainly with Americans apart from Reese, but he has quite a strong Welsh accent, which my ear doesn't necessarily tune to. But I found that after hours, when I was kind of hanging out with my colleagues, they're all American, so I was basically staying with the dialect for 5 months, which it didn't bother me. It just became second nature, and I'd rather have that, so I don't feel like I'm speaking with a false accent, because if you do need to improvise, and sometimes there were moments where things would happen and accidents would happen, and you just keep going and you improvise, and sometimes they use it. It's good to have that skill.
Okay. All right, I think we have time for one more question for you before we let you go. Heather on Twitter says, what are 3 things you look for to create a compelling character?
I think, 3 things. I look for conflict, whether that's inside the character or in the world that he's entering. And with Daniel, it's both. I look for like a catalyst of the reason that the character is stepping into this place. So a slice of time where something extraordinary is happening. And good writing.
Yeah, and if there was a 4th thing, probably a slow motion run, right?
A slow motion run.
Yeah,
not on a beach in a bikini. And a vegan sandwich. That's always kind of good.
Yeah, there you go. That's 5 things for you. Thank you so much for the question, Heather. Richard, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Berlin Station, the second episode is on this Sunday, 9 p.m. on EPIX, right?
Indeed it is, yes.
All right, anything you want to tease about the show before we let you go?
There's a scar on Daniel's back that you see in episode 1, very, very subtly. It's going to feature in the next 4 episodes. Look out for something.
All right, it's a very mysterious scar. I'm excited to check it out. You guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Richard, thank you for being here. The world of TV is very complicated. We'll guide you through it. See you next time.